So for years, South Africans have been leaving, emigrating elsewhere in the world. And for those who are staying, they are often looking to grow and protect their wealth elsewhere. And it's a fact that client needs are rapidly evolving. And financial advisors and financial planners, they need to keep up with these changes. And we also need to evolve with them. So how you ask? Well, that's exactly what today's episode is about. So let's get started. Good morning. Welcome back. Yeah, here we are once more live. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got loads of people here this morning. So thank you very much for joining us live. If you are catching up on the recording, thank you so much. Really means a lot to us. And we are really looking forward to an incredible show today. My special guest is Rex Cowley from Overseas Trust and Pension. And today we're going to talk all about cross-border financial planning and loads of interesting information and stats and just sort of facts of things that's happening. But also, how do we need to evolve and, what can we do and what's available, etc. So we are going to get into all of that. And hopefully there will also be lots of engagement and questions that I can sort of relay back to Rex, and you can get them answered right here on the show. But we've also got other people. So this morning, Leilani is here from the FBI with all the latest news and stories and things that we need to know about for our profession. We have Norma, and Norma is talking about the power of defining your own life. Kobus is here. Today is Friday the 13th. That we are doing this particular episode, and Kobus is saying that there are some branding fortunes about making Friday the 13th your lucky day. Luckily, the Irish, what was that day? St. Patrick's Day isn't also on the 13th, but it could have been double as lucky. And I've got a couple of quick announcements, including about the Speaker and Influencer program. So excited to share with you about that. And then I'm going to chat to Rex for the last half an hour of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, let me just ask, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please do so. It really helps us quite a lot. And we see that most of the people who are watching the shows are not subscribed. Doesn't cost anything, but it does help us, particularly when we are looking for great guests for the show. So please help us by doing that. And then at the very least, if you find value in what it is that we do, please like the video and do share it with others. It'll be absolutely fantastic if you can help us get the word out. On that note, let me say a warm good morning this morning. We've got Terence in the house very first. It was nice seeing you this week, Terence, in the flesh. So good morning. Mr. Mark Weston Ford, looking forward to seeing you in the flesh soon. Then Johan Basson, goeiemorgen. Nice to meet you. See Joseph, goeiemorgen. Nice to see you. Lihana, good morning. Warm welcome. We've got Arun, good morning, nice to see you. Mary, also from KZN, flying the KZN flag this morning. Francis, goeiemorgen, nice om jou weer te sien. Mr. Craig Finch was also chatting to you. Heloise, good morning, nice to see you. Rizan, good morning, goeiemorgen. Ferdi, goeiemorgen, nice to see you. We've got Mel in the house, good morning, another KZN flag flying. Michelle, good morning, nice to see you as well. We've got a lot of Pretoria and KZN flags flying this morning. Mr. Neil Phillips, just sliding in the door there for Cape Town. Good morning. We've got Willem Bester and Tina's Brits saying good morning. So a warm welcome to all of you. And ladies and gentlemen, on that note, let's head on over to Leilani and hear what the latest news is for our wonderful profession. Let's get the show properly on the road.
Good morning, Francois and team, and I wish I had all the time in the world to give you all the updates in the financial planning profession, but I've got 5 minutes, so I'll get cracking. So this morning, is it, for better or for worse, or for boter en bors, like we say in South Africa? So let's talk about marriage and divorce. For those who maybe missed it, this week, the 10th of October, the Constitutional Court handed down judgment in 2 applications for confirmation of orders declaring Section 7.3 of the Divorce Act unconstitutional. So what is this all about? Just a reminder what Section 7.3 is all about. Section 7.3 of the Divorce Act provides for that section where spouses married out of community of property get divorced, and where the court may make an equitable order that the assets of one spouse be distributed to another, or to the other, not another. So in the first case, Mrs. B challenged the section which only applied to divorces and not deaths. So you may think, but what's the definition of divorce versus death? But the significance of this case, team, is for context, Mr. B passed away during the court proceedings. So this is why she then went to the court to say, Mr. B passed away during the court divorce proceedings, and his death then automatically actually dissolved the marriage. So the court found this differentiation unconstitutional. In other words, divorce due to death or divorce due to death, as it treats spouses in the old ANC, and that's not a political party, it's anti-natural contract marriages, differently from those married after November the 1st, 1984. And the court ordered an interim reading in of a similar provision into the Matrimonial Property Act, whilst allowing Parliament 24 months to a comprehensive reform. Now, in the second case, Mrs. G versus Mrs. B faced a similar issue. The court ruled that the differentiation based on the availability of the accrual regime was rational, though, but however, it found that the differentiation indirectly discriminated against women, as they were disproportionately affected by the absence of a redistribution remedy on divorce. So while not opposing the challenges, the minister explained the original purpose of Section 7.3 as providing a remedy for spouses in the old ANC marriages who did not adopt the accrual regime during a specific window period. And the minister proposed a suspension of the declaration of the sections being invalid for 24 months to actually being 36 months, to allow for further law reform by the South African Law Reform Commission, which is currently reviewing the matrimonial property law. So we've seen over the past few months that there's quite a lot happening, from the Divorce Act to the marriage bill, and then now this constitutional two cases that we've seen. Then this morning, the 13th of October, we want to wish every single high school child good luck in the final of the finals at the Financial Sector Conduct Authority Financial Literacy Speech. There was over 3,600 school children that entered this competition. So the finals are being hosted today at OR Tambo Sun International Hotel. And Nikki McDonald from the Financial Planning Institute is one of the judges. All the best to the judges. I know how difficult it is to actually select the winner out of 3,600 students. Then the Financial Sector Conduct Authority last night at about 11:30 published their integrated report for the 2022-2023 year. So perhaps some highlights to start with. I don't have enough time to cover the full report, so I just grabbed a few bits and pieces. So a few summaries: 406 investigations were finalized, 984 financial services providers' licenses were suspended, 584 licenses were granted for new financial services providers, 92 workshops were conducted with various enterprises, 3,603 learners participated in a financial literacy competition in 9 provinces, the one that I just spoke about. 210 debarment orders were issued, 101 million rand were imposed in penalties and fines, 420 licenses were withdrawn, 47 scams and alerts were issued, and the FBI covers most of them in the slot, like this morning. 7,966 complaints from financial consumers were resolved, not received, but resolved. 1,668 regulation actions were taken, and 7,629 annual financial statements were reviewed, which also, for the financial soundness, to test the financial soundness of the regulatory entities, and 102 financial education activities were conducted. So if you want to catch the full report, go to the Financial Sector Conduct Authority website. Then Fransha and team, quickly from the FBI side, we are in convention overdrive. It's just convention at the FBI. And if you've not registered, I really want to ask support the FBI you can qualify for up to or receive up to 13.5 CPD hours in the following categories: 4.5 for ethics and practice standards, 4 for technical, and 5 for general CPD hours. And then once again, I know we congratulated the finalists, but I want to congratulate the finalists again. We actually concluded round 3 of the Financial Planner of the Year rounds this week. So again, congratulations to Tom Bruckman, Laura Warburton, and Noel de Kock. All the best to the 3 finalists. Then with that, this was a really high-level catch-up. Francois, back to you and everybody in the studio. Blessings, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Leilani, and good luck on your trip that's coming up. So wishing you all the best. Then next up, we have Norma. And as I said, Norma today is going to talk about the power to define your own life. So Norma, over to you.
Good morning. So glad to be back on this morning. So I spoke to a client recently, which sparked this topic of today. So she was talking about how she looked at her circumstances and think that she was better than her circumstances, that where she was right now, thinking that something went wrong and that she wasn't supposed to be there. And that led her to believe and to say to herself that she is defining herself by looking around her and not liking where she is at the moment. And that is something that's obviously not very helpful. And that's not something that's serving us, because it leads us to thinking that we don't have any power in our own lives. And I think this topic of today, which is the power to define our own lives, really is all about knowing that our circumstances are temporary, and that if we can shift that mindset, then we can move into a place where we know that in these difficult challenges that we can actually build our character during this time. So let us cover this topic now today and delve into that. So what I want to start with is exactly what do I mean by we have the power to define our own lives. So with myself and also for my clients, I always try to neutralize any circumstance or situation, because that is something that's outside our control. So we can sit here and talk about our circumstances and situations for hours, but it's really not going to change anything. So we can recognize it, that's important, but we need to go and sort of shift the focus into something that is useful and something that we have control over, which is the way that we think about it, what we make it mean. Because if we make it mean something that's bad, then we are not going to be driven to actually go and take action on it. So we want to think something that's serving us, and it doesn't need to be all sunshine and roses, but it needs to be something that is serving us so that it drives us and it gives us that energy so that we can actually go and take action. So we've all seen that we have people around us and people out in the world that has come from dire circumstances, and they have risen and became the victor. Now, what I want to point out next is what happens if we stay in this space where we believe that my circumstances actually defines me. Then we actually go and we think and we believe what we're thinking, and that makes us feel powerless. That makes us feel disempowered. And that's not going to get us into a space where we actually get up and do something and try and do something about it. We're going to doubt ourselves. We're going to blame a lot of people, and we're not going to actually move forward. We are going to be maybe taking action, but very little action. So what I want to talk about next is really then getting ourselves to rise out of our current circumstances and to tell ourselves and believe that I am made for more. So here's a couple of strategies that I think will empower us to do that. So firstly, it is that we are definitely working more on our self-concept, working on exactly who I am, and defining ourselves by who I want to be and who I am. And that means that we need to go and make sure that we know ourselves, we understand ourselves, that we need to know what we think and what we believe. And if it's things that's not serving us, then we need to turn that around and change it and challenge those beliefs. Second thing we can do is know that we build character during this time. That when things are well and when things go our way, then it's easy to be and to have good character. But it takes us, to really show who we are in those times where things are hard. Also, I think what helps is if we surround ourselves and by people that inspire us, that have really come before us. that can be an example of what is possible. Then also, I've recently adopted the sentence that I don't necessarily need to have a roadmap to life. I rather want a compass, because this roadmap can be so rigid and it can be so full of rules and should-haves and what the world expects us to do. But if I have this compass, then I can follow the compass. I can use my own intuition, my own wisdom. I can really do what feels right and what makes sense to me right now, and what where I'm going, and align it with who I am. And then lastly, be very clear on where we're going. Use that compass to get me there, and take those actions on a daily basis. And even if it is actions that maybe no one is seeing, that no one notices, because what we do in private is eventually going to be rewarded for us, in the long term. So this is what I have for you today. If you are in a place where you feel that you are defining yourself by your circumstances, think about the stuff that I've said to you today, and that there are so many examples out there of people that has been in dire circumstances and that came out on the other side victorious. So that's what I have for you today. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back next week.
Thank you very much, Norma. That was absolutely fantastic, on fire. And Norma's actually not going to be back for 2 weeks. She's going on a trip. As you can see, that she forgot she's going away for 2 weeks, but she's going to take a little bit of a break for 2 weeks, and then she will be back in full force. So for those of you that joined since we started, thank you very much for being here. Please do say hi in the comments. Don't be shy. And we look forward to having you with us today. Next up, we have none other than Cobus Klein, and Cobus is doing his segment on accelerating your brand. And today, Cobus is talking about branding fortunes by making Friday the 13th your lucky day.
Branding fortunes by making Friday the 13th your lucky day. Good morning to all the Propulsion viewers watching now and later with the recording. Today is Friday the 13th, a day that often sends a shiver down many spines. But what if, instead of tiptoeing around the perceived bad luck, we embrace it, channeling its unique energy into our branding strategies? Let's embark on a journey into the world of personal branding, using the mystique of Friday the 13th as our guide. Historically, Friday the 13th has been a beacon of caution. From avoiding black cats to skipping the 13th floor, we have seen it all. It's a testament to the power of storytelling, how legends from yesteryears can shape modern day behavior. In the same way, when it comes to branding, stories and perceptions mold our image, sometimes without us even realizing it. The folklore surrounding this day reminds us that misconceptions can be long-lasting. For instance, many airlines still sidestep row 13, and architects often omit the 13th floor in elevators. In branding, as in life, luck often isn't a matter of chance, but the product of diligence. That overnight success, or that lucky break you've heard about, it's often years of unseen dedication. It's persistence, authenticity, and a deep connection with the audience. Think of your brand as a garden. Each post, interaction, and decision is a seed that with care can blossom into something impactful. Now let's pivot our perspective. Instead of fearing today's date, let's seize it as an opportunity to confront and debunk myths about our personal or professional brand. Today is the day to shed that outdated image, to redefine and reclaim your brand. How about taking a moment to reflect? Identify any misconceptions impacting your brand. Maybe it's an undervalued skill or story of a past setback that has been blown out of proportion. Facing these head on not only liberates you, but also reinforces your brand's authenticity. When it comes to branding and life in general, luck isn't merely a moment. It's a combination of preparations and opportunity. Imagine standing at the crossroads of fate, where all your prior efforts align perfectly with a chance encounter. This is not just coincidence. No, it's a true magic born from diligent groundwork. Now, it's true, we don't have the luxury of predicting when or how these opportunities will emerge. They might pop up in casual conversations, during formal meetings, or perhaps in the least expected places. Yet, what remains in our control is our state of preparedness, our readiness to seize them. Going deeper into branding, I write about 3 pillars that holds the structure of any successful brand: authenticity, consistency, and a proactive engagement. Authenticity is the soul, the essence that resonates with audiences. It's not just about being real, it's about being relatable and trustworthy. Consistency, on the other hand, is the rhythm, the repetitive beats that make a brand recognizable and dependable. It's a promise, a commitment to delivering a certain expectation time and time again. And then there's proactive engagement. In an overcrowded social media world with many distractions, waiting in the wings is not enough. Engaging proactively means anticipating audience needs, initiating conversations, and consistently being at the forefront, ensuring your brand remains top of mind. Together, these elements form the golden threads of effective branding. When intertwined, they create a stronghold that not only attracts opportunities, but also ensures you ever ready to capitalize on them. So, as we navigate this unique day, let's reimagine its narrative. Let's turn this day into a stepping stone for your brand, rising above superstition and setting a benchmark for yourself. Happy Friday the 13th, and over to you, Francois.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Kobus. Definitely making today a lucky Friday the 13th. Just love the passion and just talking from the heart. So thank you very much for that. And to all the other hosts this morning for their segments, thank you very much. Right, we are well on time. Let's look at some quick announcements, some things that I have to share with you today. Righty, so what's up, what's coming up and what's happening? That is very, very important. So the very first one that I want to talk about is that Speaker and Influencer, the International Speaker and Influencer Program. The registrations are open. It's been open since we've done the Global Financial Planning Conference, but now we are sort of just reminding everybody that it's open. It's closing the 20th of October. And here's just a very short video on what you can expect and why you should consider participating in this amazing program. So if you want to register your interest, if you haven't yet, we've had plenty of registrations already. There's only space for 30 South Africans on this program. So we only take 30 people maximum from any country. So 30, it's a 50-50 gender split. So we are looking to have 15 men, 15 women to participate in this program, fully sponsored program, and it changes lives in a way that you would never, ever, ever imagine. And we've put 270 people through this program since its start. So it's absolutely incredible what that does to the world of financial planning. And we're really setting out to change the face of financial planning conferences globally, not particularly just here in South Africa. So if you want to know more, do go. And we did share some information earlier on emails and things like that. So you can find more information there. If you want to know more, get in touch with me. Otherwise, just visit the link on screen and go and register your interest. There is still a full-on application process after that, which we'll send out on the 23rd of October to everybody who's registered. So if you're not registered, you won't be invited to apply. We will then, there's a panel that will look at those applications, and we will then decide on who the lucky 30 is, talking about being lucky today. So go do that. Don't miss out on this opportunity. It is going to change your life. So that's why we start off. Is 2024 going to be your year? Then also, just briefly, we had the client meeting skills program that's running, obviously, over on Propulsion. And this week, we spoke about understanding behavioral influences that shape clients' decisions. We went through 14 different behavioral influences that Adam and I discussed. It was really a high energy, great session that we had. And next week, we are talking about influence beyond your clients. So basically becoming a key person of influence. So you're going to talk about that next week. So looking forward to the next module. Then also for Propulsion members, we've got the financial planning tools and techniques program running as well. This week, we spoke about how to explain the key difference between planning and advice. And next week, we are talking about how to hold the client's interest and align the value of financial planning with how they value their time. So again, a very important conversation to have. Then this week, finally, the Microsoft program kicked off. So we had our very first module, which was all on sharing content safely. It was all about OneDrive and how you can share things safely, and how Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive and all of those good things actually work together. And it was amazing. There was a message yesterday from one of the people who attended, said, we've been using this for 13 years and we didn't know that we could do this. So it's amazing what you can learn, even if you think you know. So I'm really grateful for that. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. It's a program that people have been waiting a long time for. So all of these programs that I've been sharing this morning is all available to our members of Propulsion. So if you want to know more, the link is down below in the description, just propulsion.co.za, so you can find out more. Next week in the Microsoft program, we are talking about productivity. So we're going to dive deeper into Microsoft Loop, which is a new product from them. It's sort of similar to Notion, but it has very cool other features and things that you can use that makes you more productive. We're also going to dive into Microsoft OneNote as well as Viva Insights to help you really understand whether you are being productive or not. So looking forward to that. So that's going to be next week's session. Then the last announcement is just around Connect. So you know that we're having these in-person get-togethers across the country. We had to change the date for Pretoria. Pretoria was going to be the 27th of October. We just moved it to the 10th of November. Unfortunately, we didn't really have a choice. So Joburg is the 3rd of November. Then Pretoria the 10th. Durban, I'm coming to you on the 24th. And then the 1st of December will be in Cape Town. So looking forward to these. Loads of people have said they're interested to attend the events. We will send out all the final details next week. So you are more than welcome. If you haven't registered yet, you can do so. You can just visit propulsion.co.za/connect and just register that you're interested in which event you are interested in attending. And we will then communicate with you further after that. Righty, so that's basically that from an announcement point of view. If you are getting a lot of value, as I said earlier when we started off, please do like this video. It helps a lot when you click that like button. It makes a massive difference to how many people we reach. And then also, if you are sort of always watching what we are doing, please hit that subscribe button. You can tickle it, you can hit it, you can do whatever you want. But it will be fantastic if you can help us in that way. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally got to the time where I can introduce you to Rex Cowley, and him and I are going to have a conversation about cross-border financial planning, where we are, where we're going, and what we as financial advisors and planners could do to stay ahead of the curve. So after this. Fantastic. So Rex is the director and co-founder at Overseas Trust and Pension. They are an independent provider of pension and trust services. So Rex, warm welcome to Propulsion Live this morning.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and also hello to your audience. I haven't been on your show before, so for me it's very exciting. And to hear some of the stuff that you guys are doing is actually fantastic. Yeah, some great stuff that's coming up.
Good stuff. Rex, just maybe a little bit more. I gave a very brief one-line introduction there. Did you just want to give us a bit of an idea of who you are and sort of what it is that Overseas Trust and Pension does?
Yeah, certainly. It's as it says on the tin, we're a provider of trust and pension services. These are international services, not domestic services. We were established around about just over 10 years ago. And I suppose the reason why we established the business is that we had a very strong belief that everyone has the right to create financial freedom for themselves. And as part of that, it's very important to be able to accumulate and protect and preserve wealth. And from our perspective, trusts and pension structures are probably the most adept at doing that, and hence why we went into the trust and pension space. If there were different vehicles, we would have probably gone into that space. So really, it's all about helping clients and their advisors get those specific outcomes for clients, particularly in retirement, and of course at succession, passing that wealth onto the next generation.
Yeah, brilliant. So, I mean, are there particular types of clients that you are really, that you are really good at serving? Is there a particular part of the market where you see this need for considering other options than what they would traditionally have?
There's sort of two key markets that we service, Francois. One of them is the occupational pension scheme market. With globalization, we've got far more companies operating on a multinational basis, either through having a permanent establishment in another country or an actual operation there. So we provide the occupational pension scheme for these people that work around the world. But then we also provide services for individuals, people like you and me, that are simply looking to make personal provision. Now, there's lots of different segments within that, and we will probably come on to some of those. But I think one of the things, and we're talking about cross-border today, and I thought one of the points to make early on is there's this perception that everybody's leaving South Africa. And I think when we look at maybe some of the statistics, is there's two-way traffic. We have people leaving. We have people coming back. And I think it's also to get a perspective around that. It's not all one-way traffic. And this is why it starts to become very important for advisors to understand how to advise in that space. But yeah, I'm sure we'll come onto that. So different, our pension products, our trust products, our retirement plans, they can apply to different sectors depending on that kind of client need, depending on different client need.
Yeah, and I think let's get into the conversation, Rex. So if we start off with just talking a little bit about the evolving needs of clients, it is this interesting thing. So I just want to start just the overall needs, sort of, what are people really looking for, and how have their needs changed over the last few years, particularly with, in South Africa, we've got exchange control, and there's been changes to that. So how are people really, like, the things that they needed a couple of years ago or a number of years ago versus what they need now? How do you see that changing?
I'm probably going to make a sort of contrarian statement here, which is I don't believe the needs of people have changed. And I think, if we go back down to the very basics, what are our needs? I have a need for a safety in my home. I have a need for, I want to have work. I want to have opportunity to develop my career. I want to be able to ensure my children are educated, and I want to be able to retire. I want to ensure that my spouse and my family are looked after if I pass away. those are the basic needs that we have. And as I was saying, I don't believe those needs have changed. What I believe has changed is how we are servicing those needs. How are we fulfilling those needs? And there we're seeing a shift from what's traditionally been a very domestic orientated approach to servicing those needs to now a far more globalized approach to servicing those needs. So I don't think the needs changed. I think the way the client's looking to fulfill that need has changed, Francois.
That's like spot on, right? So I think often we think about needs as being like, how do we solve the problem that they have? So therefore their needs must have changed. But it is just probably the things we can do to solve their problems that are changing. The problems themselves or the needs, as we said, isn't necessarily the thing that changes. So that's really, really interesting. And I think, thinking about it now as you were talking is absolutely spot on. So, I mean, if you think about people who are living overseas, and this is also a thing, right? I think I want to be clear that it's not necessarily only people that live overseas and that are from South Africa. It could also be people that are here. But if you talk about the people that have left South Africa and that are living abroad, is there anything in particular, that they challenges that they may face and things that's difficult for them?
We sort of when we look at that sort of overseas market, South Africans that are abroad, we put that into sort of three segments. Your first segment, we call them our migrant workers. And these are South Africans that are on contracts, typical 3 months to 36 months contracts. They're working abroad. Often they're in the extraction industry. They're divers, they're diamond divers, they're working on boats, they're pilots. And more we're also seeing people in the IT profession also going out on short-term contracts. Now, these people are overseas working for foreign employers. They're earning hard currency, but their families are in South Africa. Their kids are going to school in South Africa. So their needs are quite different to the person that's emigrated. So this is where I was talking about that it's more complicated. So for these people overseas, what they want to do, these migrant workers, for them, the accumulation of foreign currency is very attractive. Obviously, to offset, a devaluation of the rand or long-term devaluation of the rand or hedging rand volatility, and being able to hold those funds abroad is sort of really attractive. So for them, and a lot of these people, they're high earners, but they don't have any other benefits. Because they're contract workers. So they need to make pension provision for themselves. And one of the nice things with regards to pension provision, if you're working abroad, if you're rendering services abroad, and your company is making a provision for you into a foreign pension scheme, you're not going to get tax relief on that in South Africa. But what the Tax Act says in South Africa, the Income Tax Act says you didn't get tax relief. But when you return to South Africa and draw that pension is exempt from tax. So pensions are taxed in one way. You either get relief on the way in and tax on the way out, or you get no relief on the way in, but you get relief on the way out. So it's tax in or tax on either side. So I think for those guys that are working overseas, and of course the foreign pension does what they're looking for, accumulation of assets in hard currency, and then they can invest internationally without the restraints of Regulation 28, etc. So for those guys, that's a real advantage, I suppose, of foreign pensions. I think we've also got those the next set, and I thought an interesting statistic. That's why I say we've got to be careful when you look at stats. If we look at stats that are all one-sided, we draw the wrong conclusion. I could sit here and tell you, how many people have left South Africa in the last 20 years. It's 2 million. We had in the last 5, it's 1 million. So it's been an accelerating trend. Therefore, we think these people have gone and are never coming back. But if you look at an article from CNBC recently, they showed that there was around about 380,000 high earners returned to South Africa, sort of over the last 5 years. So these people are coming back. And if you look at those expats, these are guys that are living 5 years up to 20 years abroad. But the intention is always to come back. Now, when they're sending money back into the country, they're not sending it back for their children and the living expenses. They're investing back into this country. They want the property. They want to set things up, but they're also balancing that with holding assets offshore. So for those guys, when they return, there's also planning opportunities with regards to trusts, pensions, and many other structures as well. And then, of course, you've got your immigrants, those guys that are leaving. and they're cutting their ties. They've made the decision to go somewhere else. The reality is, if some of the latest stats shows that 8% of those people actually come back because they can't fit in where they've gone, and actually the country, the beauty of our country and the culture in that, they can't get anywhere else. So I think, I hope that answers the question, but it's not clear cut. We've got different segments and they've got different needs.
Yeah. And I mean, it is still that there are still more people leaving temporarily or permanently than there are coming back, but there are loads of people coming back, I think is the message. It's possibly an increasing number, or maybe it's just a factor of the fact that so many people left, and there's a percentage. I think you just said 8% of people, not 80%, right? 8% of people are coming back. Yeah. So it is a lot of people, but it's also not that significant. It means 92% of people didn't come back, so...
I think if you look at money flow, the figures, most recent figures published by the World Bank, when they looked at money flow last year, and same estimates again for this year, is that money flowing back into South Africa from South Africans abroad is estimated to be 46 billion rand. That's money flowing back in from people working abroad. That's an awful lot of money. Okay, contrast that to 100 billion that went out. From people externalizing funds. But that externalization of funds, some of that's going to be immigration, but a lot of that is just domestic people who want to stay here. They just, in order to service those needs, they want more investment opportunity. We've only got 240 odd companies on the JSE. Our investment pool is very limited. They want to invest in Google and Tesla and Disney and Coca-Cola and all those kind of things. So they want to go overseas. They are concerned about the rand. They want to go into hard currencies, about hedging your bets, and you can because of exchange control. There's two-way traffic. I guess that there might be more traffic going out, but there is traffic coming back. So as an advisor, your clients are going to be in one of those sectors, aren't they? In fact, you'll probably have clients in all of those buckets.
And also it's interesting, I think, if you look at the money flow stats that you just shared, and you think about the number of people who left or that's coming back, there's no direct correlation actually, because if you said 100 billion is going out, 46 billion is coming, it's going out, and that's 46 billion came back. That's 46% ratio between the two versus the 8% coming back of people who left. Like, there's no real correlation there in terms of those money flows. So you've got to look at all of this information and then to see the whole story, which is really, really important. And I think you touched on a very important aspect there to say, there's a lot of people who's not leaving by choice, and some of them want to leave, but they can't, whatever the situation may be, but they're in South Africa. But the fact is that, and we know this, we've known this for a long, long time. I mean, I think they started way back in 2000 already, where people are looking to grow their wealth elsewhere and to protect it, through investing in other markets as well. It's just part of diversification.
Yeah, I think one of the worrying stats for us is PPS produced their one of their surveys came out last week, I think it was, and they showed that 90% of kids that are graduating from university want to go and work abroad because of unemployment here, and most of them have studied to work in the service sector. We have a much smaller service sector than the US, the UK, Europe. So we've got that's an issue for us, is those kids that want to go and work abroad. I think that's a real challenge for the country, and as we see that once kids go and work abroad, guess what? They fall in love, they get married, they have the kids abroad, and then it's an issue for the parents. And I think this is part of the financial planning dilemma. You've planned for your client who's always intended to retire and live in South Africa in retirement, and suddenly you've got this fragmented family, and now they're going to have to move somewhere, or can they move to go and be with the kids and the grandkids in later years? And another thing, whilst I said, we've got these different client segments, I think when we look at mobility trends in South Africa, we consider three things. We consider work, and we've talked a little bit about work. The next bit is family. Is also one of those big motivators as to why we do stuff. Family is very important. And then, of course, wealth, and that's slightly different. So we have working cross-border, we have families cross-border, and we also have wealth cross-border. So it's the considerations around these different things that starts to become very important, when looking at planning. And as I said, the kids can actually result in that the parents' plans have to change significantly because the parents want to be with their grandkids.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like what I'm not doing at the moment, and talking to Rex, is not saying, people have to get out or they don't want to be here. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these are things that are happening. And then what do we need to know about it? And how do we then think about how we actually plan for this? Because as we just said, there was this very specific plan, and there's something that happens that changes everything. And we don't have a lot of time left, maybe because we're talking about the parents planning and they want to move to where the kids are, and it changes everything, on a drop of a hat. So it's really understanding about the dynamics that are at play and the realities. I mean, we even have, Rex, quite a few financial advisors and planners that have moved to other places like Portugal and Mauritius and places like that, where they're now working from there. They have moved themselves. Their clients are still here, but they have moved. So you also have that sort of interesting situation at the moment. Just to reiterate that one thing that you said about the younger people who wants to leave. I mean, there is a stat that you actually shared with me to say that 27% of residents in South Africa are considering immigration in the next 5 years. But you look at people younger than 25, that number jumps to 48%. So it is sort of a prediction, and it's sort of what people say. Whether they'll do it is probably something else. But what is the implications?
And whether they can do it. I want to do something, but can I do it? Is a different thing. So I think if you then actually see what happens in reality, it's very different, because there's a fiscal requirement to move. You have to be able to pay. You need to get your visas. You got to do all of those kind of things. So but as you say, where the mind's pointing, the action follows, doesn't it? So there is that. I think for parents, we always want to give our kids the best opportunity. So I think there was some stats from. One of the stats, I sort of had it here earlier, I'll probably find it now, but it looked at it. Basically, it was, I think it was the CISA, which is the International Education sort of Society. And what they looked at was South Africans studying abroad. And we've now got as many South Africans studying abroad as there are students in the UCT. And what we've only got about 15 really good universities, maybe more. Apologies to those universities that might not, but that I don't think are in there. But in any case, so we have got this. And of course, foreign studies costs a lot of money. It costs you about £35,000 to put your kids in foreign university. But whether you're in the States, UK, that's about the amount of money you need. That's their course, that's their books, that's their residence, that's their going out money. So for parents, again, how does that then impact on your plans because of the kids and the cost of doing that? And that then comes into planning to put your kids through foreign university. You've got to start accumulating foreign wealth or foreign, you're going to have a foreign liability. So you need to start accumulating, money in that currency. So yeah, we're seeing that play out quite strongly.
So we've spoken quite a bit, Rex, about clients and what they are doing and not doing and what they want to do and sort of the things that they are looking for. But what is the impact of this on financial planners? A lot of times we have it's usually, first of all, your high net worth clients that would have, you just said, some of them want to do stuff, but they can't. But the ones who can often did and do. So there's definitely an impact on advisors where maybe they are losing some of their high net worth clients. And whatever that means in your practice, but what do we need to consider? What is the impact of all of this, and how can we sort of mitigate this from an advice point of view?
Yeah, sort of two thoughts on that, Francois. The one is on one's practice, and the other one is what you do for your clients. If you don't look after your practice, you're going to be in trouble. And I think a lot of us, we probably all find we're very guilty of this. I know I'm guilty of it. You're probably guilty of this as well. But we often spend so much time working in our business that we forget to work on our business. And so, for example, I'll give you a nice example. You talked about advisors that are now set up in other territories. We've seen that as well. We've seen firms that have got a well-established business here in South Africa, but they have identified that a lot of their clients are going to another territory. So instead of going to a place like Mauritius, we've actually seen them set up in those territories where a lot of their clients are going. What this then enabled them to do is enable them to bridge that gap. So as those clients go across to Australia, as this is a case in point, the clients are going over to Australia. They're all ending up in Perth or Sydney. There's more South Africans in Perth than I think anywhere else in the world, apart from South Africa. And they're now able to retain that client, but they're in the position where they're regulated in two territories, and therefore they are providing advice domestically in South Africa, domestically in the other country, and of course they're also dealing with the international bit in the middle. So I think advisors also need to think, given clients are servicing their needs, how am I going to evolve my business? yes, going to set up in another territory, or either acquiring a firm over there or doing it from scratch, that costs money, it takes time. But we also see strong partnership relationships being formed between domestic advisors in South Africa, forming strong relationships with other advisory firms overseas. And sometimes those are not financial practitioners, they might be tax practitioners or legal practitioners, because they are complementing or they're filling in the bit that the financial advisor it doesn't do. We're not legal advisors or tax advisors, we're financial planners. We're looking after clients and helping them meet their needs. But we got to take tax and legalities and those kind of things into account. So I think, yes, I think advisors need to take a step back and just think about, how does my business evolve given that we've got these trends going on? But to answer the other question, I think when you start to go cross-border, you obviously bring in a lot of complexity or potential complexity. And what you want to do is you want to try and reduce that complexity as much as you can. So if I just give you an example, client saw recently, they were living here in South Africa, and they passed away. They had assets in the UK, they had assets in Switzerland, and they also had assets in the US. Now, they had a South African will, and that will said this covers all their global assets and, all those kind of things. And it was, all how assets were going to be divided up was all very clear. But the South African will, now, I suppose if you've got assets in another country, you've got to remember that country's got its own laws, and those aren't our laws. And just because you've got a will that's written under South African law doesn't mean that will has any standing in that foreign country. It's not written under their law. So their laws of probate are what apply in terms of succession and the administrative process to move assets. So their laws around administration are important, but then it's their laws around taxation, because there's assets in their country. How do their tax laws apply? So now you start to get a lot of complexity in then how on earth do you start to move these assets into the hands of the people that need them? Of course, it can be done, but it's costly and it takes extra time now to wind up those estates. So I think consideration around that all becomes really important. And I think this is where, the use of offshore territories is very helpful, because you're going into a territory where there's typically a tax neutral jurisdiction. And what I mean about tax neutral, that jurisdiction doesn't charge tax. That means that the individual only has to consider the taxation of those foreign products in their country of tax residency. So now for example, you only have to worry about South Africa. You don't have to worry about there's another tax or a double tax or those kind of complexities, or you have to get, bilateral relief or something like that. So looking at where your client's assets are going to be housed is very, very important. Using a tax neutral territory helps with that significantly. Ensuring that if those assets are held in the client's own name, so if it's a portfolio of stocks and shares, if it's a bank account, if it's a policy, an endowment or life policy that's investment linked, those are all held in the client's own name. Those need a will to deal with them. Okay, the insurance policy not, but the other assets need a will to deal with them. You've got to get those wills in place. So you need to have someone as an advisor that you can use to deal with those wills. If there's a tax consequence around death and the situs of those assets, you need to understand that, because some of those can be quite high. So, for example, in the UK, over 325,000 on UK assets is you've got a 40% inheritance tax on those assets. So that's very high. In terms of estate duty, the US is similar. And if you die without a will, a lot of the European countries actually have a probate system where the firstborn son is going to be very happy, but the rest of the kids aren't. So wills is important. Tax is important, but again, as I said, if you can sort of pool those assets and consolidate your client's assets into a single territory, that's definitely going to make life simpler.
Yeah. So I guess, if I was in the audience today, I would be thinking like, sure, this is a lot of moving parts. Where do I start? How do I upskill myself? What is available to me to be able to do that? Or, I'm already sort of dealing with this, and I'm already like, how do I stay abreast of all the changes and what's happening? So I guess there's always those two parts of the audience, where one is just, I need to start looking into this, versus the ones who are already sort of doing this and has incorporated it into their value proposition, but how do they stay up to date? And then maybe as part of that question, Rex, sorry for throwing 600 questions at you in one, but then also, is there any solutions for people who feel like, look, that's not my area of expertise, I don't really want to learn about it. Is there any options for them to get help as well?
Yeah, I think, it was listening to Lalani speak earlier today on the show. I think that's where we were chatting a bit backstage. But as she mentioned, that the Financial Planning Institute has got, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of members. I can't remember what she said, but it was significant, and they operate in so many countries around the world. And I think, given the growing demand for cross border services, and as I said, it depends. You might have your domestic clients. Their need for cross border is really going to be maybe limited to hard currency investments. Maybe that's what it's limited to. But the guys that are working abroad and doing other things, then maybe what they need is much broader. But the Financial Planning Institute has got so many expertise in so many different countries. I think it'd be very good to see more cross-border and more more information being brought in from those other branches of the Financial Planning Institute, particularly for financial advisors, so that they get access to practitioners that are doing this on the day-to-day basis. If I deal with an advisor in the UK, they're going to be as skilled as dealing with UK stuff as a South African advisor is going to be dealing with South African stuff. So, that's a great place to start, is talking to his corresponding advisors to get some insights. Of course, there's training and workshops and things that people can do as a financial institution ourselves. One of our regulatory requirements is to ensure that clients are trained and can use our products properly and apply them to client circumstances. So we are an accredited CPD provider. We have to go through assessment, and we have to provide education, but that's limited around the use of our products, and we only sit in a small part of the whole equation. But I think you'll find a lot of other firms do that. So if I was an advisor, if I was going to look at a firm that to use, I would look at their technical support being actually one of the key things. I would look at their regulatory standing and technical support. That to me would be paramount, because you are going to need assistance. And then the other thing is, we know our rules change, but the rules change overseas as well. So you've also got this constant changing of rules, regulations, and laws and things happening, and you've got to try and stay abreast on that. So that's why I said, if you can simplify to a single jurisdiction. Let's say, for example, we're from Guernsey, so I'll use Guernsey as an example. And if you can use Guernsey for your clients' banking needs, for their investment needs, for their retirement needs, in terms of the international side, you've simplified things significantly, rather than having things spread out in multiple territories. So yeah, and I know CPD is an important part for all advisors, and I think when undertaking CPD, depending on your client's needs, considering getting CPD with regards to some of these international things is important. And as I said, there's a lot. You have lots of institutions that will do that, including the FBI with regards to overseas things.
And then also, Rex, I know you've got an event coming up. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this event?
We've got an event coming up on the 26th of October, and it's a cross-border event, and it's specifically for the stuff that we're talking about today. So we've got three very interesting speakers that are joining us. From London, from Lisbon, and from Melbourne. They are all legal practitioners that specialize in cross-border matters, and they're going to be talking about emigration. When your clients emigrate, what can you do to assist your clients? And I think one of the interesting things is we see customers go from a South African domestic orientated position, and then they move to another country and they take up another domestic orientated position there. And they miss the opportunity to internationalize a significant portion of their wealth. And often it's that bit that can create some real value for the customer. Because also we see that when these clients move to this other territory, they don't necessarily stay there, they move on. So you want to create a neutral environment where your assets are portable, and you can get the maximum advantage from that. So these speakers are going to be talking a bit about immigration to those territories, and things that people need to consider as a domestic financial planner. And remember, if you can assist your clients to internationalize their funds rather than move it all to the new country, you're going to be able to continue to have that relationship with your clients and service them. So that's part of it. We're also looking at regulations and legislation around foreign pensions and how that works in South Africa, because obviously that's what we do. And we've also got someone giving us an update on exchange control. And I know you asked a question at the start, Francois, about exchange control, and we never dealt with it. I think that, part of the reason why we have such a domestic focus on South Africa. I started out, my career started out in 1990. I actually worked in exchange control for one of the big banks back in those days. And, and we had this fantastic gift allowance of 500 Rand, and we could take 5,000 Rand as travel allowance. And we used to have a thing called the commercial Rand and the normal Rand, and life was very, very controlled. And as we've gone along, we've seen significant easing of exchange control. But the Exchange Control Act actually has a prohibition on sending money out of the country. And that prohibition stands today, but you have allowances. Yeah. And it is only through utilizing your allowances. That's the only legal mechanism to externalize funds. We've had 2 amnesties. I can't remember if it was 3, but we have had 2 amnesties for people that had done all creative stuff to get money out of the country. But exchange control is critical. Without exchange control permissions, you can't actually address your needs internationally. So I think people need to really look at exchange control. It is a gift in my mind. It's a gift that we all have, and it's there to be used. You've got an annual allowance. Up until 2012, we had a lifetime allowance of 5 million Rand. Lifetime allowance. Now we've got an annual allowance of a million discretionary and 10 million investment allowance. It's there. It is there to be used, and people should really consider using it if they have a desire, whether it's to invest internationally or to start to build assets offshore in case they end up moving because of the family or because of work or they wish to immigrate.
Fantastic. Rex, where can people get hold of you and your team if they want to know more?
The easiest way is to contact us via our website. All our contact details are on there. That's trustandpension.com. Otherwise, LinkedIn's a good way to get hold of me as well. I'm not the best on LinkedIn, but I do answer messages when they come through.
Fantastic. Rex, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. It was extremely insightful. This is obviously a topic. I mean, if you're putting on an entire event, we could have spoken about this for the entire day. But thank you very much. All the details are down below in the description. So if you didn't catch the website address and contact details, you can do so in the description. Rex, thank you very much. And I look forward to chatting to you again.
Thanks, Francois. Appreciate it.
Righty, so another great show, another great day. Hope you have a fantastic Friday the 13th. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for liking the video and sharing it with others. I really appreciate it. I'm going to assume that you've done that already, but thank you very much. If you watched it right until the end, really appreciate it. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. In the meantime, stay safe, be blessed and prosper, and remember to continue to raise the bar. Love you lots. Bye-bye.